For some people, the summer of 2020 was the first time they heard the following.
Prison abolition.
I'm a prison abolitionist.
A case for abolition.
In fact, there was a spike in online searches for the phrase abolish prison in early June last year, according to Google Trends. This January, President Biden issued an executive order which called on the Justice Department to end its use of private prisons.
This is the first step to stop corporations from profiting off of incarceration that is less humane and less safe, as the studies show. And it is just the beginning of my administration's plan to address systemic problems in our criminal justice system.
But for many, Biden's plans didn't even scratch the surface when it comes to meeting their demands. Meet prison abolitionist Dr. Kim Wilson.
Getting people out of prison should be the goal. And it is radical. It is radical. And I talk to a lot of people and I get talked down. People are like, there's no way, my loved one did this and, they should pay. We have really normalized the idea that prisons are about accountability. And they're not. That the police can give us accountability. We have been trained over decades of watching every cop show, every murder mystery where the bad guys always end up in prison and the good guys are like, yay, they get to go free and all of that stuff. All of those things really feed in to how we think about prisons and carcerality and policing and surveillance in our own communities. People imagine that harsh punishment is the way to deal with harm, right? So abolitionists are very clear that harm happens in society. We're not necessarily, thinking we're going to get rid of harm. What we're thinking of is we can eliminate, if not reduce drastically, all of the ways in which the conditions are created through carcerality for harm to happen. Prisons are really being used to solve social problems. So whether we're talking about homelessness, whether we're talking about substance use, lack of health care, including mental health care, we're using prisons as the places to attend to those issues, even though those issues aren't attended to, in prison ever. We criminalize all of these social problems. And abolitionists are saying prisons create more harm than they ameliorate. Prisons aren't getting rid of any of that stuff. What it does is disappears it from public view. You're putting people together without any kind of resources, punishing them for things that were well beyond their control on the outside. Now, I say that, and people are going to hear probably, we don't want accountability, that, there's nothing to be said about personal responsibility. We're not saying that people are not responsible for the harm that they commit. What we're saying is that prisons aren't the way to resolve those harms. Abolition is in the present. We can think about what we want a future to look like, but those of us who are part of this movement are building that future now. We're basically saying we're going to keep chipping away at this system, and we're not replacing it with things that are also carceral. Like, we're not changing the cages, for other cages, where it's not a trade-off. The work begins locally. What are things that are missing in your community? If your community is being over-policed, then reach out to an abolitionist organization that's doing political education around how you get the police out of your community. We could do 1,000 other things, right? If not 10,000 other things that actually get at reducing the numbers of people that are being held in cages, and not just saying, we can create kinder, gentler cages. Kinder, gentler cages are still cages.